Yo, welcome back everybody to a brand new video here on the second channel. It's finally time to look at some online tournament results. Limitless the past weekend weren't able to update the open decklist feature for Stellar Crown, but since Monday, we now finally have open decklist here on Pokemon TCG Live, and we can view the deck lists that have been winning in the online tournaments. And I'm excited to see what decks have been winning here in the online tournaments because, of course, it's a new format. I'm excited to see if there's any brand new cards being played, any new archetypes, any new cards, strategies, all that stuff, innovations to new decks, all that stuff. I'm excited to look at in today's video. Also, with, of course, the Louisville Regionals coming out very soon, which will be Stellar Crown Legal, it's important to look at these results because they could impact what archetypes are played at Louisville. And, of course, if y'all are new here to the second channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We're on the road to 17,000 subscribers. And, of course, if you want to enjoy the video, leave a like and all that good stuff. And if you want to play in any online tournament for yourself, I'll leave a link to play.limitless, the site I'm using, in the description below. They usually have free tournaments every day. So, starting us off here, we do have the Deck Out Monday tournament to look at, and of course, the deck that took it down was, of course, Miraidon. Now, Miraidon definitely has been getting a lot of hype with the brand new set, and that's mainly because of Area Zero Underdepth. It might not seem like the biggest upgrade to the deck, but let me tell you, this card does allow Miraidon to be even more powerful. So, Area Zero, of course, you have to have a Terra Pokemon in play, but you can bench up to 8 Pokemon. So the idea is you use Miraidon and you grab a Mewtwo EX out of the deck with Miraidon's ability, giving you that free Terra Pokemon in play. Now, Mewtwo doesn't do anything in the deck other than literally just enable Area Zero to be in play. But Area Zero does allow you to also hit even harder with Raikou V. Now, that's kind of the main instigator for Area Zero, is it turns your Raikus into really strong hard hitters. So definitely, Raikou becomes a lot more deadlier with Area Zero, especially if your opponent also plays Terra Pokemon and they decide to fill up their bench too for their strategy. Raikou can come in and hit really hard. But also, you get to bench more draw Pokemon. You can see the build here playing Mew, Pheasantipity, Squawkabilly, Lumineon, Greninja. A lot of draw in the deck. Because of Area Zero, you can free up a lot more bench space to put more draw support Pokemon in play, meaning that when your opponent tries to hand disrupt you, well, you just have all these draw cards in play, and you're more consistent at what you're trying to do. And that's kind of the idea behind the draw with the Area Zero. The build here doesn't play any draw supporters, just 4 Arven and 3 Boss, just like kind of the old Miraidon builds we've been seeing that have really just been playing the same thing, Arvens and Bosses orders. Maybe they'll play like a Research. This build here, that one did not play Research, but it's a pretty solid Miraidon 60. There's only 1 Iron Hands in the deck as opposed to 2, which usually Miraidons do play, but the 1 Hands is fine. Hands is not as impactful right now within the format, though I will say you might be a bit weaker into Charizard EX. But Miraidon did take down a tournament here, and I'm not surprised to see it do so well. Now, we got Regidrago here in second place, still putting up numbers in the new format. Now, Drago doesn't really gain any new cards. Like, I guess you could theoretically play a Briar in the deck if you want to use Teal Mask Ogerpon. But I think overall, Regidrago stays the same, but it does still get a lot better because a lot of the decks that are being good, like Dragapult EX, Charizard EX, all these decks that are getting popular now in the new format, well, Dragapult EX with Regidrago just happens to be really good against them. And that's kind of the main reason why Drago is still getting a bit of play right now, is because it's really good against these Stage 2 decks. And Drago, getting second place isn't surprising. It did lose to Miraidon, which I think is a very close matchup. I think Drago actually, as long as Drago can evolve, I think that matchup is actually favored for Drago. But, Miraidon can do turn 1 donk sometimes. Sometimes you just can't do anything about it. But yeah, Drago seems pretty good right now. Again, it doesn't really change with the new format. No new cards are added. There's no new Dragon Pokemon. But the deck is still really strong, and it doesn't need any new cards because it gains good matchups in this format, which sometimes all a deck needs to stay relevant. So we'll have to see where Drago goes going forward here. And then, of course, in top 4, there was a very interesting Aegislash deck here, an Aegislash Great Tree deck. It's kind of a control deck in a way. I mean, you are playing 4 Aegislash here with that ability, Mysterious Shield, where you prevent all damage done to it by your opponent's EXs and Vs. A very interesting 60 here, utilizing that new Great Tree Stadium. Having Aegislash be a bulkier Mimikyu on top of the fact that it can actually do decent damage, on top of the fact you can also play the Aegislash EX in the deck, which basically does more damage for each prize you've taken. I really like this idea, so yeah, maybe I'll do a video on it. Who knows? I really like the idea of Great Tree. I think Great Tree has a lot of potential in the format. We just have to figure out the best ways to play it, and, one of the more solid ways could be to pair it with Aegislash here. So really cool deck, and I'm excited to see this deck do pretty well. Definitely a pretty cool 60 for sure. And then, of course, in top 4, we also got Raging Bolt, another deck that I think really just kind of stays the same for the most part, except some Bolt lists will be playing the brand new supporter card, Briar. Briar is really good with Teal'c Ogre Pawn, of course. When your opponent has 2 prizes remaining, you can play the Briar, you can take KO with Ogre Pawn, and then you can like take 2 prizes and win the game on the spot. So really interesting things you can do with Briar in this deck. I think Raging Bolt is in a pretty solid spot right now. It's pretty good actually into the other decks we just looked at. Apart from this Aegislash deck, the deck seems pretty good into Miraidon and into Regidrago and into Dragapult EX. I mean, Raging Bolt does boast some pretty good matchups in the format. And there's actually been a lot of talk about Raging Bolt being a potential, like, top deck contender. Like, Raging Bolt's, like, maybe, top 5, top 6 deck in the format, rules format. But Stellar Crown format, there's rumors and talk that Raging Bolt actually could be a potential, like, top 3 deck in the format. Like, it just kind of beats up on all these other decks in the format, all the other turbo decks, and of course it has a good Dragapult and a good Regidrago matchup. So Raging Bolt definitely seems good. And of course the addition of Briar does fix some of your issues that the deck does face. Then we have an interesting Pidgeot control deck here in top 8. Or not, actually. It was a Terapagos deck. Never mind. I thought it was a Pidgeot control deck, but it is indeed, never mind. It's a Terapagos deck. So it's a Terapagos Dusknoir deck. I've been seeing this on Twitter. I think Isaiah Bradner was playing this yesterday on his live stream. It was like a Terapagos checkmate deck, I guess is what it's called. Dusknoir just being a really powerful card, just knocking itself out to put 13 damage on the board is just an absurd ability, and abusing it with Terapagos does make sense. Terapagos is a really strong attacker that does have a lot of efficiency with how it can attack, needing only like 1 double turbo. And then you have the Bouffalant in the deck, you got the Pidgeot in the deck, you got Noctowl, and the Dusknoir line in the deck. Just kind of, the deck comes together pretty easily, so definitely an interesting way to play Terapagos. Might be the best way to play Terapagos over the Trumpet build and like the tank build that I've seen online. So maybe the Dusknoir build is, there's something going on here. But it did get top 8, and this is one of Terapagos' potential first top 8s in an online tournament. And this Dusknoir build does look scary. I mean, Dusknoir is just a very strong card. We saw a lot of Dusknoir at Baltimore, and for good reason, because the card just has an absurd ability, and there's a lot of ways you can abuse it, a lot of partners that you can use it with, and a lot of different combinations that Dusknoir works with. It's just a very strong and deadly card. We do have our first look at Dragapult here in the top 8. Dragapult, Pidgeot, seems like it's going to be a top deck because basically the deck gained a couple new cards. The big one, of course, being that Sparkling Crystal Ace Spec. It allows Dragapult to use Phantom Dive for 1 energy, on top of the fact that thanks to Arven, it's actually really easy to get turn 2 Phantom Dive off, which, usually that was reserved for Regidrago V-Star. But now Dragapult EX has the luxury of doing Phantom Dive even earlier in a match now. You do have to set up like stage 2, so it's not as quick as Regidrago, where Drago had the ability to use Teal'c and Squawk ability to easily set up a turn 2 Regidrago, and they have Legacy Star. But Dragapult, if it can set up like turn 2 Pult plus Pidgeot, that's a pretty good board state, and Dragapult's attack is super impressive. There's a lot of combos you can do. You can take extra prizes with it. You can see this build here playing the Pidgeot. It does play Radiant Alakazam in the deck here for a little bit of support. I'm not sure if Charizard's good or not, like Radiant Charizard, but Radiant Alakazam does give you some extra, plays you can make with Phantom Dive. And it's got Crispin too, another way to build up a Dragapult in a single turn. So Dragapult becomes an easier card to attack with without needing the extra energy, which is what makes Dragapult potentially a scary deck in our new format. And then we got a Guardian top 8 here. Guardy, clinging on to the format. I mean, it still seems okay. I mean, if Miraidon's going to be popular, I'm not too sure Gardevoir is in the greatest spot. But Gardevoir just kind of doing Guardy things. I mean, doesn't gain any new cards. Like I said, there's nothing new. Unless you want to play the Slowking Gardevoir deck for memes, Gardevoir just doesn't really get any stronger, but it just kind of stays where it is. It just keeps its matchup spread. Though I will say, if Dragapult, Regidrago, and Miraidon become meta threats, I'm not too sure Gardevoir is going to be in the greatest position. I guess Dragapult's probably not the worst matchup, because you play Devo, Munkidori, Cresselia, which actually Dragapult can struggle against. Speaking of Dragapult, there's one more Dragapult here in the top 8. And this one does play the Dusknoir in the deck. So the other build that did a little bit better in the tournament did not play the Dusknoir. This one does play the Dusknoir in the deck. Dusknoir, Dragapult, also just a dirty combo. Dusknoir being able to take extra prizes with the addition of Phantom Dive. It's kind of dirty. You also get access to Pidgeotto in this deck, which is playing TM Evo, so kind of like what Tor did with the TM Evo Pidgeotto engine. Pidgeotto does help you a little bit more against other TM Devo decks. So I kind of like that, actually. So maybe if you're playing Dragapult, maybe consider playing TM Evo Pidgeotto or something like that, just to protect yourself against TM Devo, because Pidgeotto has 80 HP, which can be a little bit more helpful versus Devo. But yeah, Dragapult with Dusknoir seems really good. And once again, playing the Crispin, playing the Sparkling Crystal, does have Briar in there too. And that was one of the first tournaments here, the Deck Out Monday tournament. We can move on to the Sunny Weekly tournament here, which of course was won by everyone's favorite deck, Snorlax Stall. I mean, yeah, it's Snorlax. Like, I mean, it's pretty good. I don't really know if it's going to get any new cards. I was looking at this list and it looked like there's a single new card in the deck. But Snorlax just still kind of stays where it is. I mean, you're hitting the right matchups, it's going to win the game. If decks aren't respecting Snorlax, well, it's not very good. If, like, Dragapult, Regidrago, all those cards are not respecting it, it's going to dominate. Interesting enough, too, there's also a Quad Thorns here in second place. Another deck that I think kind of just stays relatively the same. There's no new cards, but Quad Thorns just kind of still does Quad Thorns things, and just still an annoying Wally kind of deck, right? Surprisingly enough, it did lose to Snorlax, but I guess Snorlax can win because they only had the one Cologne in the deck, so it makes sense. If two Cologne, could have seen a Quad Thorns tournament dub here. The deck does also use Unfair Stamp for the ace spec for a little bit more hand disruption. Stamp plus Thorns actually seems like a pretty dirty combo, not gonna lie. But yeah, Thorns just still being Thorns. I mean, looking at its matchups, not bad. I mean, maybe the Dragapult matchup is a little bit harder, but I think overall, just shutting off ability, slowing the opponent down makes sense. There's a Charizard here in top 4. Now, Charizard is also getting a lot of talk, mainly because it does gain Briar. Now, Briar is really good with Charizard because you can take that extra prize card when you knock something out with Charizard when your opponent has 2 prizes remaining. It's really difficult to play around Briar when Charizard has access to Dusclops and Dusknoir when they can force you to take a prize, force you into Briar range, and that'd be pretty annoying. So Charizard is definitely getting a lot of talk right now as a potential top deck in the format, and we do see one here making top 4, though to be fair, like Quad Thorns and Snorlax being above it, you know, it's not very good for Charizard, even though this build does have a one-of canceling clone, and a Turo, just probably not enough to get over the hump against those decks. But yeah, Charizard with the Briar is really scary. So Guardian top 4 here. We see Gardevoir with Secret Box, kind of like the, it's very similar actually to what we saw at Baltimore with Henry Chow's winning build, with the 2 Research, the 2 Candy, so trying to make the Henry Chow build work here in the new format, and honestly, I think it's fine. To be fair, this could be a lot better in eventually stuff like the Dragapults, and maybe even Miraidon, to be honest with you. You're not as slow, you don't fold to Iron Hands as easily if you can push turn 2 Gardevoir. We have an interesting Spidops deck here in the tournament's top 8. I mean, Spidops is a cool card. I like it. It does gain Gravity Stone, which lets it do more damage, so definitely want to try Spidops out for a video very soon. So cool stuff to see it get top 8. Yeah, cool stuff, cool stuff. We got another Charizard in top 8 here. This one does also have Dusknoir and stuff. Playing Entei in the deck alongside Magma Basin and Double Turbo and Devo and Mist Energy, a super teched out Zard build. Not playing Briar, though. I guess it's like the one big card missing in this Charizard list is there is no Briar, but Charizard just is still strong. Maybe you don't even need Briar, bro. It's Charizard, bro. It's Charizard. It's just the best card in the game. Another Guardian top 8 here. This one is a little bit more traditional. It does have the, you know, double monkey. It's got the flutter, the clef key. A little bit of a slower build, no candies or anything. But it's still Guardy at the end of the day. And then finally in the top 8, there's yet another Snorlax. So 2 Snorlax in the top 8 of this tournament. Pretty diabolical. But again, if stuff like Charizard are going to be popular, well, Snorlax is going to reap the benefits of that and just become an even bigger meta threat. So, I mean, it's pretty scary, but Snorlax seems pretty good. It got top 8. Got literally 8th place and 1st place in this tournament. Kind of crazy. All right, we got the Pumpkin Amy tournament here, which was won by Charizard. Now, this is a very weird Charizard build. It's actually a Charizard EX deck with Ogerpons in there, a Luxray. It's actually kind of a control deck. It's more of like a control Charizard hybrid deck. Just kind of took that in. We've got the 2 Charizards, got the Pidgeot, the Luxray, the double Ogerpon, the Cornerstone, and the Wellspring. Got Entei V in the deck. Does play Eerie and stuff. The Ace Spec's interesting. It plays Legacy Energy for the Ace Spec alongside having a Mist Energy in the deck. So really interesting Charizard list here. Again, more of a control deck. Just kind of trying to lean more into the control package. Still commits to the Charizard bit, though, with the 2-1-2 Charizard line. But it does have those elements of control sprinkled in there, which can help in like the mirror match and stuff. And just having these annoying walls can be, you know, helpful in other situations too. And it was able to win the tournament, and it was able to take down, it looks like, an actual Pidgey control in the finals, which is actually really surprising that that actually won the tournament. Considering I would argue this Pidgey control deck might be more favored, but maybe there were different lines we didn't know about. But yeah, we see an updated Pidgey control. Does have the Noivern in the deck still. It's got the double Snorlax, Mimikyu, the Ogerpons, the Mawile. Does have Luxray. Interesting enough, it is playing at one new card here from the looks of it. It is playing that new Comfy, which basically force both players to draw 3 cards. So at the end of the game, you can make your opponent draw 3 cards and deck out. So that's the idea of playing Comfy. Kind of cool stuff. So it makes the control a little bit better because you can just deck them out a lot quicker. Instead of like using Shiyu, you can Comfy for game, which is even funnier because then you're winning the game with a 7 HP Comfy, which is pretty cool. So interesting stuff. Got a Lugia here in top 4. I think Lugia is still actually worth looking at in this format. It's a Lugia deck with the Cinccino and has the Raikou, but no Lightning Energy. Just kind of more draw support in the deck. We do see the 4 Research, 3 Iono. But yeah, just have Raikou and Iron Hand, so the double Lightning package. Lugia, I think, is still good in this format. Honestly, still worth looking at. I don't think it's terrible. Other than like a bad Miraidon matchup. Miraidon might be more popular now, but you know what? That's maybe okay, but we'll see. Because I think Lugia is still like not a bad deck right now in our format. Then we got a Drago in top 4. Drago still chilling in this format. Like I said, Drago still seems pretty solid here in the Stellar Crown format. Doesn't gain anything, but still can kind of just do Drago things, and I think it's still like a decent deck in general. Even if it's not gaining new cards, it's still getting better matchups, and Charizard and Dragapult are going to be popular. It's not a bad deck to play. Got another Miraidon deck here with the Area 0 Underdefs. This one does have a Raichu V in the deck here, which can help a little bit more into like Zard, obviously. And Raichu could just be a nice way to blow up the opponent at the end of the game with that big attack. And then you got the Mewtwo still is the only Terra Pokemon. I don't know if like Terapagos is worth playing, but Mewtwo's pretty decent still. You just tandem unit for it, and then boom, you can play the Area 0, and then you can hit harder with Raikou. So yeah, Miraidon looking pretty good within this format with the help of Mewtwo. And we got another Dragapult here to look at in top 8. This one is a Dragapult Xatu deck, so not playing the Dragapult Pidgey build. In fact, the only new card in this build looks to be the Briar. There's not even the Crystal A-Spec, just playing the Unfair Stand because you have Xatu as your energy acceleration system. I guess you don't need to play the Sparkling Crystal. You can instead play Unfair Stand for a little bit more disruption, but still has the Briar in the deck, which is still really good with Dragapult. So, yeah, cool stuff. Dragapult Xatu, still decent. Is it better than Pidgeapult? Not too sure, but, you know, I think they're both good. We got a Turbo Moon here in top 8. Another deck that, again, doesn't gain any new cards, but doesn't need any new cards. Just kind of does the same thing it always does. Goes fast, dongs the opponent, puts on a lot of pressure, forces more of your opponent. Looks pretty similar, actually, to like the world's top 8 build. Actually, it might even be the same 60, to be honest with you. But, I mean, it's Moon at the end of the day. Just goes fast, goes hard. Yeah, even those no new cards, just sometimes it doesn't need new cards. Just kind of does what it does. It got top 8. We got another Dragapult here in the top 8. This one was the Pidgeapult deck with the Sparkling Crystal and the Briar, and does have the Dusknoir in the deck also for that little bit of extra damage spread potential. Looking pretty scary. Dragapult Dusknoir looking pretty good still. And that's another Dragapult here within the top 8. And that was that top 8 of this tournament. And then we can move on here to the Happy's Pokemon League tournament here, which the winning deck also happened to be a Dragapult deck. And it was another Dragapult Dusknoir deck, also playing Briar, Crispin, and Sparkling Crystal. So Dragapult really put up the numbers this format. I think a lot of people just tried it out for the initial hype of how good it seems, but I think its results are definitely, you know, proof that Dragapult is legit that good of a deck. Being able to get a Dragapult out turn 2 attacking pretty easily is pretty scary. Another Raging Bolt here. No new cards. Not playing Briar, just straight Dragapult or straight Raging Bolt. Surprising that it did lose to Dragapult in the finals, considering, you know, Raging Bolt should theoretically beat or Raging Bolt should theoretically beat Dragapult, but kind of is what it is, I guess. Got a Charizard here in top 4. Charizard Pult. My favorite deck, man. No Pidgeot, though, in this build. Just playing the Dragapults and the Charizards. I guess the Dronjin is the Dreepies and Draclo. Oh, the Dracloaks, sorry, not the Dreepies, but the Dracloaks. Got the Rotom, the Fez and stuff, I guess, still. 4 Arven, 3 Boss. Heavy Gust in the deck, too. Also playing the Kieran and the Turo. Also has a TM Evo, but the ace spec of choice is the Sparkling Crystal, which I guess still helps with getting those turn 2 Dragapults off. Yeah, Sparkling Crystal is interesting to still see within this list here. But cool stuff. I like Charizard Pulse. It's a fun deck. I'm a fan. We got another Moon in top 4 here. Just again, another Moon with the Fez. Does actually play the 4. Actually, it's more of like a Baby Moon Mooney X package deck. Actually, it's got Explorers, Sada, Vessel. Yeah, it's more of like an ancient box build, except there's no like Fluttermane or Walking Wake or anything. Just have the double Mooney X. So it's kind of like a hybrid Moon deck where you can actually lean into the Baby Moon as an attacker. But yeah, Moon still seems solid in this format, so don't sleep on it. Another Miraidon here. This one does not play Area 0 in the deck, surprisingly enough. So no Mewtwo, but does play the Iron Thorns, also has a Town Storage, kind of the more traditional Miraidon deck. Does have the double Raikou, so maybe if you're playing against a deck with Area Zero and they happen to put one into play, then you can abuse the Raikou, so maybe that's kind of the logic there, I guess. And we got another Charizard deck here with the Pidgeot. It's got the Dusknoir, plays Hero's Cape, Mist Energy, kind of like the old build, but does have the Briar within the deck, though. The one new card. Then we got another deck here. Let's see what this is. It looks like, ooh, it's a Terapagos. So this is the Terapagos tank deck, it looks like. Yeah, the Terapagos tank deck. All about basically just hitting with Terapagos and then using Pidgeot to find Penny and healing it every turn and having the double boof in play with like Radiant Serena for healing and tank potential. Seems pretty cool. So yeah, tank Terapagos looks pretty solid. So I don't know, maybe this deck has potential within the format. So that's what, 2 different Terapagos decks. We saw the Terapagos Dusknoir deck, and now we see the tank Terapagos deck here. So that's cool. So could be something to it. And then finally, we have another Raging Bolt here in the top 8. Now, this one does play the Noctowl engine in the deck. That's kind of the other new thing I've seen with Raging Bolt is playing Noctowl, which you can, of course, use Ogerpon to activate Noctowl pretty easily, and then you can use Noctowl, find you your Sadas. Also, you can play Glass Trumpet, which can accelerate energy into play for Raging Bolt also, which is kind of cool. So there's a lot of really interesting things you can do with Noctowl in the deck. I'm not sure how good it is over, like, the traditional Raging Bolt list we've been seeing, but, you know, Noctowl seems like it's a really cool idea to pair with Raging Bolt, especially when you can use it for more consistency, and then, of course, you get access to cards like Glass Trumpet, which can get you more energy into play out of nowhere. And then finally, we got the Tournament of Doom. This one was a bit of a smaller tournament, but I did want to look at it nonetheless, because there are some interesting stuff in top 8 here. So, of course, the deck that won, once again, it was Snorlax. Oh, my goodness. And then history repeats itself. The deck that got second place was Quad Thorn. So, I guess looking at the top 4, we saw Palkia, so obviously Quad Thorns probably would have had a good time in a Palkia. Surprisingly, this Quad Thorns did lose to the Snorlax deck, considering it plays double canceling clone. Must have been some bad Sisters or Eerie hits there, because I'm surprised Quad Thorns was not able to beat Snorlax in the finals with double clone. But Quad Thorns just seems okay still. I mean, especially if Palkia's team play, right? That's an interesting finals. Quad Thorns and Snorlax duking it out. But we do have a couple Palkias here in the top 4. Our first look at Palkia here with the new set. Now, Palkia seems like it's going to be good again. It's got all the tools it needs to be good. It's got the Noctowl engine, Area Zero to make it do more damage. It can hit extremely high numbers. You actually can easily pull off Prime Catcher Clone thanks to the Noctowl getting you the Prime Catcher Clone. So Palkia seems like it's in a really good spot still going forward, but nobody's really cracked the 60 for it, I guess, or it just hasn't really been figured out yet, or maybe it's just mid. But I think Palkia's got potential, and we are seeing one here in the top 4. And we got another one here in the top 4. We'll see what differences these lists have. I guess they're actually pretty similar. I guess this one does have Fan Rodon, which we didn't see before, to help get the Noctowls, and does still have the Wellspring Ogerpon and the Terapagos in the deck. But yeah, I think Palkia's good. I was surprised to not see any of Palkia in any other tournaments do as well. This is the first tournament we're seeing Palkia have decent results, which is surprising to see, because I do think Palkia, I mean, it's got to be good in this format, right? It seems like it could be a good deck. So I don't know, maybe as like the format goes on, Palkia will pick up in play. We'll have to see, though, on that one. Because even, like, Miraidon isn't the worst matchup if they don't take the first 2 prizes, you know. So we got a Regidrago here in top 8. Again, no new changes, just playing double Jaming Tower. Kind of actually what we've been seeing with the other Drago lists in this video. Let's see what we got here. Yo, we got here it is. The Cornerstone Noivern deck. So this deck did have a really good showing at Baltimore. We got top 8 of the tournament. It's a very good anti-meta deck. It was really good for the Baltimore tournament. But going into this new format, will this deck be able to still see success? If the meta is going to be relatively the same, then probably. But the one thing I'll say about Noivern Ogerpon is that it doesn't have a great Dragapult matchup. That's like the one concern I have about playing this deck, is it doesn't have a great time in a Dragapult, and I don't know if I'm trying to take it L to Pult. Maybe playing like hammers and stuff maybe fixes the matchup a little bit. That might help a little bit, right? But I don't know, Cornerstone Noivern, it's a cool archetype. It's an interesting, like, stall control deck, because it actually attacks you. It doesn't just sit there and pass, counter, catch, or spam like Snorlax does, right? It actually can attack you and put pressure on you to do something about the 4 Ogerpons you have to go through. So, cool stuff. So, we'll have to see if that deck can continue to see play in this new format. We got Charizard in top 8, of course, with the Dusknoir. This one does have the Great Tree Ace spec, which is cool to see, playing the Pidgeotto. A lot of people are saying like Great Tree doesn't work with Charizard's ability, and that doesn't matter, because you can still Great Tree out Dusknoirs, you can Great Tree out Pidgeots. You basically turn like your Super Rods into like free Pidgeots and Dusknoirs. Like, It's pretty good, man. Even if you're not putting Charizard into play, you can also search out like a free Charmeleon to then have that protection on your bench to then get the Charizard out even easier. Like, there's just a lot of versatility of Great Tree. You are sacrificing stuff like Hero's Cape and Unfair Stamp, though, for the Great Tree, but Great Tree is still a pretty solid card in Charizard, and we'll have to see if it continues to see some success in the deck. Then finally in the top 8, we had a Goldengo deck. Doesn't look like there's any new cards in the deck. I mean, doesn't gain anything. I don't think so. It's not a Terra Pokemon or anything, but Goldengo's still doing Goldengo things. I mean, maybe you could play Goldengo with Area Zero, and then you can lean into more of like a Palkia deck and then have like the Goldengo for backup. I don't know if that would make any sense, but I don't know. Maybe that's another way you can take Goldengo. And I guess if your opponent's playing Area Zero, you can kind of make Palkia more of a threat. Even if you're not benching more Pokemon yourself, your opponent is, well, Palkia hitting even higher numbers. But yeah, Goldengo's cool. I like it. It's one of my favorite decks, so happy to see it still get these top 8s. But there you go. Those are all the recent online tournaments for Stellar Crown. Actually, as I'm recording this, there's a late night tournament going on, so I'm sure I'm going to get another one of these videos out later in the week. Maybe this weekend, like Sunday. We'll see. I'm trying to do another one of these online tourney videos very soon so we can get more of a broad scope of the first week of Stellar Crown results. Because I'm interested to see what else can do good. I'm hoping to maybe see a little bit more Palkia pick up play, because I think Palkia is good. I just don't know if anyone's playing it, because really the only Palkia we saw was in that tournament of Doom tournament, right? Everything else, there was no Palkia in the top 8 whatsoever. It was all like Charizard and stuff. But there were some interesting decks, like that Aegislash deck looked kind of cool. A lot of Dragapult doing really good. Miraidon winning. Snorlax still putting up numbers in the format. But more like interesting control decks, like the Aegislash deck. The Noivern Ogerpon deck popping up now, too. We got a couple Terapagos decks, so there were some interesting decks we did look at in today's video, and I'm excited to see where else the meta goes going forward. And like I said, I'll leave a link to Play-Doh Limits down in the description below if you want to go play in any online tournament yourself. Maybe you'll make it in the video one day if you do that. So, yeah, get a top 8 with a cool deck featured in the video. You never know. But that'll be for me. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you're new to the channel, subscribe it down below. We're on the road to 17,000 subs, and yeah, I'll catch you on another video very soon here on the second channel. Bye-bye.